Welcome to page 11 of Excel packet number 4. On page 11, we are going to complete the following I can statement. Let's read. Given a word problem with a ratio, I can write an equation that represents the proportional relationship. And we're going to use the format K times X equals Y. But if you look at the 6 story problems you've been given, you'll notice they don't use the variable X and Y. They use variables that are specific to each problem. So we're going to have to determine which variable represents the X or the input data and which variable represents the Y, the output data. When we're talking about our K rate, also known as the constant of proportionality, we calculate that by placing the Y value over the X value. Or in the case of a unit rate, and sometimes the K rate is a unit rate, it is the amount per one item. So remember, as we get into each problem, you will see that we calculate the K rate by placing Y over X. Let's take a look at our very first problem. Apples cost 89 cents per one apple. Now that's a ratio, and it happens to be a unit rate ratio. So we can set it up as 89 cents on top, so we're putting our dollar figure on top, and our item is one apple. Please take down these notes. The good news is that is a unit rate. Let's keep reading. Write an equation that represents the total cost C and the amount of apples, and we'll use the variable P to represent that. So instead of using the equation K times X equals Y, instead of the X and Y, we're going to have to determine where the C variable goes and where the P variable goes, rather than X and Y. And here's how you do that. If we're representing cost as the letter C, that's a dollar amount. And if you take a look at your ratio, cost is on top, or in other words, takes the place of the letter Y. So cost would go here. And if you're looking at the amount of apples, P, well, the apples amount goes on the bottom. Clearly, it's here in the ratio. So P is going to take the place of X. Now, what about that K value? Well, since this is given in terms of a unit rate, that ratio is 89 cents per one apple. That is your K rate. We don't have to do any calculations to figure out the K rate. It's given to us in the problem. So this reads 89 cents times each apple P equals C, the total cost. And that's the correct equation for number 1. Let's take a look at number 2. Before you jump in to the problem, please write K equals Y over X. Now let's begin. Oranges cost $1.19 per orange. Write an equation that represents the total cost, C, and the amount of oranges, G. Well, our unit rate ratio that we've been given puts dollars on top, that's where the Y variable is, and oranges on the bottom, that's where our X variable is, $1.19 per one orange. So we know rather than using X and Y, we have to use the variables we've been given. Cost is the letter C, and clearly cost is on top, and G is the number of apples, and clearly that's on the bottom. So in place of the Y, we're going to use a C, and in place of the X, we're going to use, very specifically, on purpose, the G. So first write the basic equation down, then substitute. Put a C in for the Y, and substitute a G for the X variable. And as far as our unit rate is concerned, it's given $1.19. So this reads $1.19 times every orange G equals C, the total cost. This is our equation. Now try number 3 on your own. Pause the video and write the equation by yourself. See if you can get the variables in the correct spot. When you're ready to check your equation, turn on the video and complete your work. Please pause the video. Your equation should be 0.65 65 cents times every lemon M equals C, the total cost. Now let's move on to the remaining 3 where you're not given the unit rate. You have to calculate it. You're going to need your calculator, and you should also write an equation. Please move on to 4, 5, and 6. Let's take a close look at number 4. It states 6 apples cost $5.75. That's our ratio, but it's not a unit rate. It's not a cost per apple. We're going to have to figure that out. But for the moment, write $5.70 per 6 apples. Write an equation that represents the total cost, C, and the amount of apples, P. Punch into your calculator 5.70 divided by 6. We need to come up with the unit rate, or the cost per one apple. You should get on your screen 0.95 or 95 cents per one single apple. Clearly, cost is on top, which is equivalent to our Y variable. The C variable takes the place of the Y variable, total cost. And in the bottom of our ratio, you can see that that's the amount of apples. So the variable P represents apples, or in this case, X. So we will use the variable P. And our unit rate, our cost per one apple, 95 cents. So after calculating the unit rate, we can write our equation. Complete the next 2 on your own. When you're ready, check your work. For the 5th problem, you should have gotten 93 cents times each orange G equals total cost, C, give yourself a C. And for the very last one, 75 cents times each lemon M equals C, the total cost. Give yourself a C or a star if you are correct. This completes page 11.